Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you for doing this.
It's my pleasure.
I'm so excited to speak with you. I know we've been talking, and we've had some of our small businesses here sending questions as well to guide some of the questions of this fireside chat. So we're really hoping to have, a very practical conversation here. So I'm going to go straight into the conversation, and I'm going to ask you to just take us to the beginning. How did this start for you, building this business?
All right. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to be part of this whole special event. Please let me first recognize my wife, who is sitting there. Please, could you stand up? All right. So my wife is also a co-founder of Slots. Just for the record. All right. How did I start? I'm happy. I like the title of this whole, event. You call Hustle Academy. So I think I should refer myself to as an executive hustler, right?
Yes, absolutely. Premium hustler.
All right. So basically, I think in every business there must be a story. Most times people don't really get to understand the story; they just see the results. Right? So mine was basically a very humble beginning. So I would like to say that my entrance into the business world was born out of necessity. I didn't plan to do business. So do not be deceived. There was no business plan. So there was no business plan. There was no vision, no mission statement. All right. So I was just a young man who wanted to survive. So it was more of survivor instinct. All right. And so, because I didn't have any uncle who could help me get a job, of course, if you don't have connection, you should have competence. So I didn't have connection, so the only option was to acquire competence.
I like that.
All right?
If you don't have connection, you should have
competence. All right, so I had to spend 2 years, looking for the jobs that were not there. Of course, having studied electrical electronics engineering with a good result, I expected to have a good job in one of the multinational oil producing companies. Of course, most people go to school because they want to work in top companies like, Mobil, Chevron, and the rest. So that was my dream, but that didn't happen. So it dawned on me that these jobs were too few to go around. All right? So what I did, and that was very deliberate, I had to look for market opportunities. All right? So that time, that was late 90s. Computer engineering, computer business was becoming very popular. The era of cyber cafe. I'm sure some of you can recognize that. Cyber cafe everywhere. And so there was that need for technicians to always come around, maintain cyber cafe, fix computers. So I saw that need. All right. So there was need for me, therefore, to acquire the right skill to be able to meet that market opportunity. So identify market opportunity and also acquire skill that can help you meet that market opportunities. So that was what I did. So I identified the need for computer technicians, computer engineers. Though I studied engineering, but I didn't have a practical knowledge. So I needed to work as an apprentice with a friend who at the time had a computer engineering outfit. So I worked with him as an apprentice for 6 months without salary. So I was very deliberate about it. I was very intentional about it. So I spent 6 months, and those periods were very, very significant in my journey. So I acquired the skill. I became very good because I was committed, I was consistent, and I was, like I said, deliberate. So while people were looking for how to make money, I was looking for how to acquire the skill. Colleagues were making money, at every opportunity they had. And that actually changed my narrative about business and about the business world generally. So these guys, technicians and engineers, were seeing consumers, customers as their prey. It was more of a predator and prey relationship. So I changed that, all right? So having acquired the scale, I was so concerned about customer service. I was so concerned about integrity. And I think the trust part of it was what really changed the game for me. Because few people were really concerned about trust. So it was more about how much money did you make? So I think it's going to be very wonderful if you bring in the trust element into whatever you do, all right? Consumers want to trust you. Partners want to trust you. And that has a lot to do with your journey. So that was how I started. So having acquired that scale, I was able to fix basic computers, do basic things with computers. And I was able to get a small business place, all right? Don't forget that I was not particular about money. And so when you talk about entrepreneurship, please don't talk about money. Money should be the last thing,
Wow.
all right? If you can acquire the right skill and you can find opportunity, money will come, obviously, because you can attract investors, you can attract partners, you can attract angel investors, all right? Whatever kind of investment, you can attract that. So while I was in that small space with a friend who had a bookshop, because I couldn't afford to pay for a space, so I had to squat with a friend who had a small bookshop around the neighborhood, all right? So I asked this guy to allow me, share his business space. And the guy said, oh, no problem. You will pay me 25,000 naira a year. And I said, you know what? I don't have that money right now, but give me 2 weeks. I should be able to raise that money. And the guy allowed me. In less than 2 weeks, I was able to pay him that money because people were locating me. They were looking for me. When I fix your computer, I won't just fix it. I will clean it. I will dust it. So when you pick up your computer, you'll be happy that you brought it to me. All right? So I was very passionate about what I was doing. I was very concerned about the customer and the user. And at the end of the day, I'm going to follow up with you to ask you, how is the computer doing? Is the computer fine? Do you have any problem with your computer? So I was quite exceptional, to be frank. So while I was in that small bookshop, I noticed that there were too many customers who would come in asking for my service, and then the bookshop guy couldn't have a space to sell his books anymore. And the guy had to ask me to leave. One of my customers then, who was so impressed about my service and all that, came around one day and said, this place is too small for you. All right? I need you to get a bigger space. And I told him, I said, yes, I know, but I don't have that money. He said, oh, I will support you. I have some printers that I brought from the US. I have some photocopy machines that I have. I'm going to give you these items so you sell them and use the money to get an office space. And when you do that, you can pay me anytime you're ready. So competence plus integrity would obviously produce relationship that will produce value.
Wow.
So this guy gave me these printers and these photocopy machines. I never sold anything before in my life. I didn't have any idea about trading. So the guy just told me the price is 200,000 naira. This one is 150. I said, oh, really? I just added 5,000 naira. All right? So these guys, you know how it is where people walk around, oh, is this for sale? I said, yes. How much? That was it. In fact, the particular guy, when I told him the price was 225,000 naira, the guy said, are you sure this is original? I said, why? He said, because it's too cheap. I said, okay, how much do you want to pay? He said, I'll pay 30K extra, as long as you can give me warranty. I said, yes, I will give you warranty. So that was the first time I did sales. And so I raised that money, and I was able to get a space that was how we started in Computer Village. And in 10 years later, we bought that property.
Wow. So it's one thing for you to have these values and for you to start off in the bookshop and for you to, be doing it for a few customers. But how have you been able to replicate this across your 1,500 staff?
It works is this. If you have your personal values, all right, you should be able to communicate this. And all of us have our personal values. So these personal values, or otherwise called core values, are things that we hold so dearly to ourselves. There are things that we call non-negotiable values, all right, our belief system, all right? So if you have that, for example, if you are someone that you don't want people to lie to you,
yes,
all right? You don't want to have anyone who tells lies, all right? So that's the way it works. Anyone who tells lies won't be part of your team. So we are careful about this, and from the onset, we are always intentional about communicating this. All right. So we'll let you know our core values. Number one on our core value is integrity. Number two is customer service. Number three is excellence. So we share this with you. And you could be fired if you go against any of these core values. All right. So in our appraisal system, we use commitment versus performance. So if you're not performing and you're good in terms of commitment, we feel you need training. We can train you. All right? So, but if your commitment level is low and your performance is high, you are not a good candidate.
Amazing.
All right? So performance shouldn't be number one. Number one thing should be commitments. I mean, when I say commitment, I mean values. I mean character. All right? It's very important. So that comes first. And so we're able to communicate this from the onset. And so if you're not in that, if you're the kind of person that doesn't align with that kind of value, you won't want to work in such an environment. You want to live.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that's the way it works.
That's great. And kudos to you once again. You talked a little bit about money as well and how, you know, some of your customers were even kind of your angel investors into your business. What other ways have you used to kind of raise financing for your business? And how has that evolved over time from when you had the small shop to now where you have branches all over the nation?
All right, so raising money is a very important part of business. I don't believe that you should start by going to the banks, getting debt and stuff like that. One of the ways to raise money is, first of all, have a business that has potential. You should have a business that has opportunities. So if you have a good business that has potential, you will attract the right partner. The reason why you can't attract the right partner is because you don't have the right structure. It's because you don't have integrity. So if you have the right structure, I mean, you have the right people, you have the right structure, you are competent, your business has potential, you will obviously find investors. You obviously find partners. You obviously find strategic alliances. These people would come and collaborate with you. So looking for money shouldn't be the major problem, shouldn't be the major issue. The major issue is how prepared are you, how positioned are you to attract a partner, to attract investment. Now, what does partnership bring to the table? It brings proper decision-making. Or better decision-making. When you are taking decision on your own, you can't make the right decision. Yeah. So you need partners to help you make the right decision. They bring in technology. Sometimes what you need is not really cash. It could be technology. They bring in resources. It might not be financial capital. It could be resources. So having the right business that has potential, having structure, and then having integrity would obviously attract partnership. I believe that partnership is one of the ways to solve issues that has to do with financial capital. So if you have the right partners, they will obviously bring whatever they have to the table. So there's going to be a synergy, right? And that, in the long run, will impact on your business. And so if you also want to go to the financial institutions to ask for financial support, I mean, in terms of debt, they also want to see your structure. They want to see what you've done in the past. You have to have a business that has potential. All right? So you should be able to communicate your strategy. You should be able to have something in place to talk about it.
What would you advise in terms of like when you're going into an alliance, what you should look out for, and how do you overcome the fear of losing the majority of your business?
In terms of partnership, if you can define your position, you can define what you're bringing to the table, and most importantly, you need to have a good lawyer. All right? Intellectual properties and contracts and all those things are a little bit new in Nigeria and in Africa. People don't really respect contracts that have to do with intellectual properties. People abuse that rights. I mean, trademark, copyright, and all that. They are not very... So you need to find the right lawyer who can actually come up with a better agreement that everybody would obviously be forced to respect.
Yeah, so you should not just have a conversation, oh, you're my friend, I'm your friend, let's just do this thing together.
You have to document everything you do. Yeah. You have to document it, all right? It's very important. Sometimes we have this contract and we don't even register it, all right? So you have to document it, you have to register it with the necessary authorities, and then you have to protect yourself. with those documents. In fact, I always advise in business, your agreement should protect you in such a way that you won't have any reason to go to court.
Can you tell us about some mistakes that you've made along the way? And how did you overcome them? What did you learn from them? And yeah, what were the results?
I've had a fair share of these mistakes and challenges and obstacles, and it cost me a lot as well, and cost my company a lot. The first on the list is the one that has to do with hiring family members and relatives. You can't build a structure if you have people that you can't fire. So do not hire anyone that you can't fire. You can't fire your brother, you can't fire your sister. It's difficult. It's going to be messy. When we started Slots, the first 4 or 5 years were the period of error, trial and error. There was no structure. So we're just making money. We only had operational scale. All right? Entrepreneurship requires you to have 3 major skills. All right? Operational skill, managerial skill, and organizational skill. So these are skills that you need to grow your business, manage it well, become more efficient, achieve operational effectiveness, and expand. So after 4 years, we were able to discover this challenge. And so we hired a consulting company to come in and help us look at our business because things were going upside down. And so this consulting company came around and they said, you know what, you have a lot to do. So they worked with us for 1 month and helped us set up our structure. All right, and then build or set up our growth plan. All right, so there was need for a growth plan. So we set up our growth plan in phases, and we had 5 phases. So everything was intentional. So you don't just wake up and do stuff in business. You have to be intentional about it. So we were able to solve that problem of family members and relatives. So what we did was to call for a family meeting. And then we had a very good settlement plan, all right? And everyone agreed, and they came to the realization that, look, this will not work. And if this is not working, everything will go down. So it was a very peaceful resolution, and we moved on. So hiring family members and relatives who are not competent is not a good idea. So that's number 1. Mm-hmm. Number 2, go to markets. Sometimes when you have an idea of what to do, you'll be in a hurry. Like we used to say, your body go the hot, your blood go the hot. All right? So we're in a hurry to go to markets. We came up with the idea of bringing the dual SIM phone into Nigeria. So when we launched Techno in Nigeria, we were too quick. All right? We were too quick. So we had this partnership with the Chinese guys and said, you know what? We need to bring in dual SIM phone into Nigeria. All right? And communication was a big problem. So these guys will be speaking their own English. You'll be speaking your own English. And so we brought in this product, about 5,000 units. We didn't allow the consumers to test it, to use it and give us their own feedback. There was no feasibility studies. And that was a big challenge. So we just believed that a dual SIM phone would be wonderful. So what that means is that you have 2 SIM cards in 1 phone. And that's fine. But that wasn't the point. All right? So we discovered that these phones were not working simultaneously. You have to switch off one to use the other one. And that defeated the aim. All right? So consumers were bringing back the phone. They said, no, this wasn't what I asked for. I wanted a dual SIM that when I'm in Calabar, if I get a call on this one, I'll pick this one, I'll pick that one. So that was a big problem. So we had to go back to the drawing board. All right? So we had to come up with a phone that has 2 SIM cards that could work simultaneously. And that was how we were able to solve that problem.
That is very interesting insight. Who would have known that the first dual SIM phones actually had to switch one off to turn the other one on?
Use the other one, yes.
Wow, interesting.
Yes, so that was a big mistake. So you can imagine how much we would have lost, all right? So we lost money, and that was also for us to learn, all right? So when you are bringing any product, when you're launching a product, you need to get the consumers to test it. Let them use it for a period, say 1 month, all right? Get their feedback. And that was what we did with the second edition. So we allowed consumers, about 20 people, to use it, all right? And then we got all their feedbacks, and we were able to make those corrections, and we got it right. All right. And then again, we also had problems of...
yes.
Please clap.
You were not here when we did a round of, if you have a techno phone, wave it. So if you have a technophone, do you want to wave it? Again, so many people in the room.
Thank you. All right, so the essence of business is not basically to make money. It's to create wealth. It's to impact on the society. For us, we are happy to see number of people that are working with the Techno brand. That's my joy, all right? How many people have benefited from the brand and how many people have been employed? So wealth creation is one of the major reasons why we should do business. Wealth creation, all right? Creating wealth, impacting society and all that. So let me go back to the mistakes and challenges. I'm sure you're very interested in that.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
You're giving us two now.
All right.
So.
Number 3, when we launched the screen insurance in Nigeria, we were also too quick to go to markets. Screen insurance means you buy any phone from us within a year. If the screen is broken, you could come back and get the screen replaced. We got our fingers burnt. All right. I'm a risk taker. My wife is a risk averse. And she kept telling me, this thing will not work. Me, I've looked at the spreadsheet. I like looking at spreadsheet. I like looking at numbers. Yeah. And you know how it is when you say 20 times 10, you get 200. So I was looking at that. So, but we didn't consider the people. We didn't consider the culture. We didn't consider the behavioral part of things. So strategy that doesn't consider culture is just a waste of time. So people were bringing back their phones in 2 months, 3 months. Why? Because they were rough with the phone. The fact that the screen is insured, the guys were now careless. All right? After all, the screen is insured. The guy will even try the phone and see if the screen will break. So we're selling like 5,000 services in a week, but we're getting like 6,000 return. It was crazy. All right? And then we struggled for 8 months. People were happy about the services, but we were bleeding. And it got to a point we had to take the tough decision. So entrepreneurs must take tough decisions. All right? So we had to take the tough decision to stop. Mm-hmm. All right? So we didn't consider the behavior of the people. All right? So that cost us money. Again, we had challenges when we also came up with the slot franchise. So we have a franchise that we've built. And the franchise is about 10 years now. And we're growing by 30% with our franchise business. So we have 75 retail stores at the moment. So 30% of those are actually our franchise stores. And so we are deliberate about that because we don't want the franchise business to grow more than 30%. All right? So it's very competitive. So we are managing it, in that way. Now, talking about the franchise business. So when we came up with the franchise business, we look at what happens abroad and how franchise business is being managed. And we came up with similar contracts, similar agreements. Until one day we just woke up, a guy just removed the slot name and put his own name. Nothing was changed. Color remained the same. Everything remained the same. And then went to court and got an injunction stopping us from closing the store.
Wow.
Wow. So the agreement didn't capture that part of it. The agreement didn't take into recognition that someone can actually go to court before you and get an injunction to stop you from harassing him. That was a big one. All right? So what did we do? Since the law couldn't protect us because of like I said, the agreements, we had to do something else. We had to set up slot stores close to those stores, and with our customer service and the things we were doing, he couldn't cope.
So you went back to competence.
All right. So the energy to sustain growth is what matters. So that's what we did. So he had to close and he had to sell those shops to Conga. All right? And so we were able to take the market and then we went back to drawing board and we got more competent lawyers to help us prepare our document. And then this time, we would not allow you to be the tenants. We will be the tenant to the landlord. We will sign the agreement with the landlord. So you will just come in. So any day or any time you have problems, you will take your leave. You are the one that will take a walk.
Amazing.
So what that means is that we've come to consider the fact that people don't really take contract or agreement very seriously. So you have to protect yourself so that you don't even have need to go to court. All right. So if a tenant, of course, once you are a tenant, you can't do anything. So that was what we've learned, and how to do that right. And then again, the one that has to do with franchise stores, people copying, imitation, of course, it's very common in Nigeria and Africa. If you have a business that is doing well, once you're making profits and people know that you're making profits, they want to copy you, imitate you. All right, people wake up and just paint their stores red and white and then look for names that are close to the slot name. We've seen G slots. We've seen E slots. We've seen similar names like that. And so because we've registered our brand, we registered the trademark and all that, we always go to court and stop them. All right, so those are part of the challenges that we've gone through. There are several challenges that have to do with wrong decisions. For example, sometimes we open locations open stores in some locations without doing proper feasibility study, without looking at the purchasing power of the people. All right. Sometimes we just get carried away with numbers and say, "Oh, this is a large population." All right, but numbers sometimes doesn't translate to naira and kobo. All right. So we've had reasons to close some shops because of wrong decisions. All right. So in business, generally, there are mistakes you make by way of decisions or whatever it is. We're not God, so you are bound to make mistakes. But the point is, how do you learn from the story? All right, so learn from your mistakes and able to work with that in the future. And then the ones that you did right, also learn from them and be able to make them better.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing those four amazing mistakes that you've been able to just learn from, grow from.
Yeah.
I think also with a lot of entrepreneurs is, for those that are a bit more risk averse, because I really like the fact that you say, you're the founder, your wife is the co-founder, you're the more risk taker, she's the more risk-averse person. I think that balance also works. So it's not to say, don't be aggressive, but also find the balance. And even when you're aggressive, learn from it, right? So take learnings from it. Listen to feedback. Listen to the feedback you're getting from people about the mistakes you made and iterate from there and grow from there. Make it better. So thank you so much for sharing all of that as well. A little bit about, you also talked a little bit about, doing many things. You're an engineer and you're running a business as well. In fact, you became a numbers guy because you said, 2 times 20 is equals to, so you work with the numbers as well. This is something that entrepreneurs face a lot, right? Because when you're running your business, you are the CEO, you are the strategy person, you are the visionary, but also you are the operations person, sort of, also the legal person, sort of, you're also the HR, sort of. So you have so many things in one human being. What's your advice for young entrepreneurs in terms of, because also you talked about how you've also built structure around yourself to make sure, and actually you got external help, got a consultant, external help to help you to even build that structure, to set that vision so everybody can see it, right? And to create it in such a way that other people are now, everybody now, we hire the right people to do the right job. So how do you go about, and I know it's still difficult, for a lot of entrepreneurs, you still kind of mix match, but what would be your advice for entrepreneurs in the room today in terms of how do you cope as a CEO and not be everywhere, the head of strategy, head of HR, head of legal, head of operations?
Yes. All right, so you're talking about micromanagement.
Yes.
All right, so I always advise my friends to avoid activity trap. All right, what that means is that you are involved in too many activities. And if you do that, you won't be able to, perform your major tasks. Every entrepreneur, every CEO is expected to be the strategist of his business, the strategist. You are the one that should strategize. You are the one that should find opportunities. You are the one that should attract partnership. Mm-hmm. So, but you need the right skill to be able to do this. And that's why I mentioned earlier there are 3 major skills that you must acquire. The operational skill, otherwise known as knowledge-based skill. That is the one that most people have, that helps them to generate profit from their business. The guy who has a spare parts shop somewhere, he has money. He makes so much money from his small shop. He has operational skill. That's the only thing he has. So, but you need the next level in terms of this skill arrangement, which is called a managerial skill. What that does is it prepares you to know how to formulate strategies. It prepares you to know how to manage your business efficiently and effectively. It prepares you to understand what management accounting is all about. How you can use your leading indicators against your lagging indicators. How do you look at your numbers and make informed decisions? So you need this kind of knowledge. But most importantly, the organizational skill is the one that helps you to hire the right people and keep those talents. How do you attract talents? How do you attract people to work with you? All right? That's a very serious skill. You need to take that skill very seriously. All right? People come work with you a year, they want to leave because they can't find any future. So you need that skill, organizational skill. So when you have these skills, you should be able to train people, motivate them, and give them responsibilities. So when you do this, you have so much time to yourself to think. So all you have to do is to strategize and allow the people to execute.
Yeah.
All right? So your job is to come up with strategy, come up with the ideas, and then you throw it open, and then get them involved. So when you do this, you won't have any issue that has to do with operation. However, you should be looking at the numbers at the end of the day, all right? But you shouldn't be involved in how these numbers are being, how operations are being, handled and how things have been done. You should know at the end of the day that they are doing the right thing. So it's more of supervisory and not just trying to be involved in it. So activity trap is very dangerous. Do not get involved in activity trap. Get the right people, train them, motivate them, make them feel committed, and let them deliver. If you do this, you'll be able to take your business from one level to the other. But when you get too busy, all right, from morning to evening, you can't even pick your calls.
Yeah.
You'll be able to pick your calls. You won't be able to send emails. You can't even read your emails. So you don't need that. So you should have someone or a group of people who can help you manage your business. So your responsibilities are, one, find opportunities, build the right structure, attract the right markets, attract the right partnership, and instill commitments. When I say commitment, I mean core values. All right? So if you have this in place, your business will be well positioned for either an angel investor or a partner who wants to collaborate with you to also achieve his own goal. So once you do the right thing, you will obviously get a positive outcome.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. So avoid activity trap. If you know you want to scale your business from I'm doing this in my bedroom or in my house to I have many stores. Thank you so much for sharing that. So let's talk a little bit about digital tools. In setting up your business, I know you like to look at spreadsheets and all those things, and you're a computer guy, engineer by background. What role has digital tools played in helping you to build your business?
With technology advancement, consumers now have multiple channels and devices, it's spread across. And so every business must be able to use digital tools to either attract customers or even retain existing customers. So your knowledge of these tools would go a long way to help you manage your business and actually increase your bottom line. So we are very familiar with this. And as an IT-based company, we use these tools to monitor our customers' journey, being able to know their media preferences and use the right or dedicated messages and content that would make sense to them. So you don't just do stuff. You need to get the right information. So we use Google Analytics as part of our tools. Google Play display ads, the CRM, a whole lot of tools that obviously helps to achieve efficiency. And then all this brings result and benefit to our websites. All right. So at the end of the day, you don't just want to bother somebody with email. You have to know who the customer is. You have to understand his preference, and then you can send him the kind of content that he would like to have. So we use these tools to increase our traffic, convert, of course, without conversion, the whole essence of this thing is not making sense. So Google Analytics on its own helps us in terms of measurable abilities. We're able to, measure our impacts and what we're doing. And at the end of the day, we're able to use those tools to drive traffic to our websites.
Yeah.
All right. So understanding the consumers, understanding the right tools to use is very important. And then most importantly, we also host our website and everything, using the Google Cloud, which is also very good for us. And again, in terms of the Google Map, it's also very helpful to us. We use that. If you want to search, for example, where is slot store in Abuja, with the Google Map, you can actually put that up, and that's very helpful. So using digital tools will go a long way to reduce the complexity, reduce the time, reduce costs. And if cost goes down, time goes down, what happens to revenue? It goes up.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nnamdi.
Thank you, too.
I want to ask you for one thing. What is your final word to entrepreneurs in the room today?
I want to challenge you guys to be able to grow your businesses to a point where you can build structure, you can attract the kind of opportunities that we're waiting for to happen in Nigeria. I want to challenge you to be able to build a system or a company that is ethical. Yeah. Professionally, you must be ethical in your business. So if your business has integrity, if you have a reputable business, you attract talents to work with you. You attract the right partners that will come in and collaborate with you. All right, so there's no way we can attract foreign direct investors if we don't have a business that is well positioned, a business that is well structured, a business that has the right people, and a business that has the right leader. The role of leadership is very important. So if we're able to do our business or run our business properly, we won't only impact on the immediate environment, which is Nigeria, we will also, by extension, impact the rest of Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
You're leaving me with 5 words that you've mentioned so many times in this conversation. One is integrity, competence, relationships, partnerships, and obviously value.
Yeah.
Value.
Right.
And a few quotes just to kind of recap on some of the things that I've heard here today. You talked about if you don't have connection, you should have competence. You can't lose on both ends. Do something for yourself. You also talked about if you don't have a strategy that does not consider culture is not a strategy. You said entrepreneurs should avoid activity trap, right? And lastly, you said you don't try business. A business is a venture. You dare. So thank you so much, Mr. Nnamdi, for the honor of spending time with you today. Thank you for all the nuggets of wisdom. We're incredibly grateful.
Thank you.
And we are incredibly proud of Slot as well and everything that you've achieved. And I'm hoping that everyone has taken away nuggets of inspiration here in the room today. And we will see many more businesses of integrity, really spin out from this conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.